Okay,
We could take a
We're
break.
ready.
okay, with Josh in, I think we're ready. Good evening. I'd like to call the Thursday, October 8th meeting of the Tacoma School District Board of Directors to order. Would the General Counsel please call the roll?
Yes, good evening. President Cobb.
Here.
Vice President Bombright. Here. Director Leon.
Here.
And Director Keating.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. So moving on to item number 4, adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
I move to adopt.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments about the agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor of adopting the agenda say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is adopted. Item 5, the Superintendent's Report, 5.1, Summer Learning 2020 Board Update, sorry.
So I asked James Neal and John Page to kind of give you a quick update of some of the activities that happened in the summer. This is not an exhaustive list, but it gives a good example of some of the activities that happened. Is James in the meeting?
Hello,
There he is.
everyone.
Hi, James.
I am. How are you today?
We're good.
Welcome. Well, I'm assuming that somebody's going to show the board report, or do I need to share my screen?
I think we have it.
Oh, you all
Kevin?
have it.
Kevin, can you share it? There we go. You're up,
All right.
James.
There it is. All right. Well, I'd like to thank you all for being here. My name is James Neal. I'm the director in student life, overseeing athletics and activities. And this was my first summer having an opportunity to oversee the operations of summer school and work with our community partners and so on. And as you can guess, it was a challenging summer. But first, I'd like to just say thank you to a young man named Brian Haylau, who is a new employee in Tacoma, and his role is summer school coordinator. And so he was hired on during the midst of our COVID-19 closure and learned to navigate a new landscape and create new systems in the midst of all of it. And the greatest thing is that he is a Tacoma alumni and a Lincoln graduate. So he's been a great help in our office, and he's continuing to come up with new ideas and learn new things. So right into our numbers. So the second slide should say overview of statistics. So you can see an annual gradual look of what the data shows about how our programs grow or don't. And so obviously the summer had many challenges. The number of programs was drastically reduced. In-person was postponed and canceled for Tacoma Public Schools summer programs. If you look at the column all the way to the right, you'll see that the total of our programs that students were part of virtually was 1,039. High school was 690 students were part of Edgenuity. You'll also see that there was Jumpstart programs, and most of those were virtual. So they were made up of schools conducting online videos and webinars with families to introduce them to the new systems in the school, included laptop checkout and so on. Middle school didn't have a lot of Edgenuity online programs, and then our elementary operated its summer reading program, and I'll go over a little bit of what that looked like. The very bottom right number I want you to take a look at, and that is the number of meals that were served by our summer meal program. And Paul Harris and his crew served almost 300,000 meals this summer. And that was quite a feat. And we know that the need in our community was high, and his team stepped up and delivered big. So the next slide will list some of the other summer programs that were conducted across the district. And you can read those for yourself. As you see, the second one has been a traditional elementaries program, which we shifted immediately with the help of curriculum instruction and the Title I department, videotaping lessons and putting together teams of classrooms of kids across the district to serve Camp Discovery. As said before, I mean, our programs were drastically reduced because of the no in-person learning. We were also had a huge barrier with access to laptops and technology. The third bullet you'll see was an emergency day camp, and we partnered with community organizations across the city, and about each month served around 700 kids, mostly inside Tacoma Public Schools facilities under the child care guidelines released by the Department of Health to provide much needed daycare and respite for families that needed to go to work. We conducted online credit retrieval through Edgenuity at the high schools, and I'll have a slide on that coming up. John's going to share more about the Summer 253 program that his department run, and then there were some limited programs in online ELL and SPED ESY as well. Camp Discovery is the next slide, and that you see a screenshot of some kids working on their computers and distance learning, and this is how they ran Camp Discovery, which was typically a program where kids reported to the elementary schools and had a morning of learning and an afternoon of extension. Now they were online with a teacher, learning at limited times during the day. A lot of it was self-learn with one small group check-ins, but it was 100% virtual through Microsoft Teams. Schools worked to deploy what laptops they did have in their buildings that they were able to deploy. The grade levels had themes of national parks, museums, and animals. There was a 10-to-1 ratio for the classrooms. We served 180 4th and 5th grade students across the district that were identified kids specifically by teachers and Title I and lab teachers, program specialists, to recommend those kids. Overall goal was really to keep kids connected to reading and reduce the impact of the summer learning loss. The next slide is Edgenuity, and you can see the numbers of students at each high school that recaptured courses and credits. Overall, at the beginning of the summer, our school counselors identified students who were lacking in credits or who'd failed a first semester course. So they enrolled around 700 kids in the Edgenuity. 422 students participated in the courses on Edgenuity. 280 completed their courses fully. And as you can see, the different areas that students recaptured classes. Last year, I think there were 721 enrollments, 376 completed courses. So, a reduction, but when we're talking about lack of technology and some of the other barriers, actually having kids come in person, which has been the past practice, we'll take it as a win. The next slide is for John, Summer Jobs 253, John Page.
Thank you, James. Good evening, President Cobb and Superintendent Santorno and members of the board. My name is John Page. I serve as your Director for Career and Technical Education. So thank you for the opportunity to share a little bit about Summer Jobs 253. This summer was the 8th consecutive summer since the program's inception. It's designed for high school students, first-time job seekers, and with the emphasis focus on students that are credit deficient and or of low income status. But what I really want to share with you is I've got to go back in time. It feels like yesterday. I checked my calendar, literally it was May 1st as we were regrouping from the COVID school closures. We had some serious conversations with the partnership with the city of Tacoma of whether we'd even be able to pull it off. And we were thinking how we're going to communicate out to the public. Dr. Garcia and Mayor Woodards joined that conversation on May 1st. And really, Mayor Woodards was behind it saying, we need this program. We value the program. What do we need to do? How can we make it work? And on the other side of the table, through virtual, was Dr. Garcia, a previous social studies teacher. And he was planting the seed really for the Civilian Conservation Corps, a model of leadership in the community where young people contribute to their own communities. And the team, I want to recognize first off Shakisha Ross. She's a workforce development specialist with the city of Tacoma. Brady Becker is a Next Move internship coordinator here in Tacoma Public Schools. And Chris Sieg is a worksite learning coordinator of the district as well. Those three took the ball and ran with what the mayor and our deputy superintendent were talking about there. And they came up with a model, and that's what you see in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. There's three components. There's job readiness that was done through remote learning. the resume writing, the career research, the interview skills. And then there's the second component is the project preparation, where kids designed, they did project management for a project of their selection that they would execute in the community. And then the third component was project completion, where they actually, following the health department regulations, guidelines for social distancing during COVID, where they took on projects individually in their community. And I'll share a little bit about some of those projects. The big shift this year was what was previous to the last 7 years was an employer-employee relationship. This one here became student-centered with virtual coaching from the 3 people I just shared, plus business volunteers that worked with the kids. Huge celebration. The program was designed to support 50 students. 67 students started that program. 67 students finished it, completed all 3 phases. It's pretty remarkable, guys. During COVID or not COVID. The coaching was through Microsoft Teams. I don't know all of the volunteers. I should probably hunt that up. I know that Mr. Willie Stewart was one of the volunteers, but the idea of the volunteers was really to help kids vet their projects, something that they can complete 25 hours of their project. So there's a lot of helping clarify what would be reasonable, help kids work through that. Also, part of it was the micro credentials that aligns with the board adopted benchmark for industry recognized credentials. These are smaller credentials. These were done online through EverFi. I know that President Cobb has a interest, as well as others, in the financial literacy component. Really, if you get a chance to check out EverFi, it's through a foundation. It's really for social justice for what has occurred over history about predatory lending policies across the country. So it's really about consumer awareness about the real cost of debt, how to run your personal budgets, so on. The character playbook is a little certification. It's more about your interpersonal skills, communication skills, and then entrepreneurship, because there were people, small businesses, actually leaders joined the conversation with the kids. So 3,200 hours of service was completed. Those projects ranged out. I've got a list of each project, but some of the kids did. I'll read through just a couple. St. Louis, working in food banks is a really common one, whether it's St. Leo's or a host of others. Northwest Youth Corps, mask making for COVID-19, Black Lives Matter, Andalusian Arabic Center, Mother Earth Farm. It goes on and on. I don't recognize some of the partners, but that's what the kids directed their hours towards. A huge celebration out of this is, in short order, the mayor and the city recognized the value of the kids and what their learning was. They appropriated an additional $40,000 to continue this program from now through December 31st. Our MOU with the city expires on December 31st. So they're going to support 50 more students right now through December 31st. And then we're working right now on amending the existing MOU for the next biennium. That's all the city budgets for it. So that's what I wanted to report to you tonight. I want to thank the board of directors and the superintendent, deputy superintendent. I know that we talk a lot about innovation. We talk about nurturing, and we talk about being courageous. And the team that you empowered to make this work, when the chips were down and when it was 4th and 10, they delivered. The 3 people: Chris Sieg, Brady Becker, and Shakisha Ross.
Thank you, John.
I think I used my time, man.
You did a good job. Thank you, John.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Neal.
The next slide. Virtual Jumpstart. So Jumpstart has been a program that has really blossomed in Tacoma School District over the years. There's been an opportunity to work with our students during the transition and reduce the stress that is induced through a transition into a new school year and a new building. Unfortunately, with the delay of in-person learning, we had to shift, and we put that weight on the shoulders of school administration and their school counselors and the innovative people in their building to come up with ideas and ways to conduct a virtual Jumpstart for our kids in Tacoma. And that looks different at every school. But as you can see, a few of the screenshots that we shared above, teachers, athletic directors, counselors, principals got together and created PowerPoints, presentations, videos to welcome kids to their school, systems, and then also have drive-through events, right? So you see up there on the left with our ideas of grab and go supply pickup, virtual welcoming for staff. And again, it was all developed at the school level, and the schools really took the reins and did a really great job with that. So unfortunately, we don't really have a great way to measure, what did the participation look like? But we had a maximum effort from the schools. The next slide is our summer learning synopsis. So obviously we had a transition to virtual learning for the summer, and we had a great opportunity for teachers to get even more familiar with Microsoft Teams. Teachers led lessons, held office hours, and did individual study time with students. Meanwhile, we also conducted Edgenuity at the high school level in particular, and had an opportunity for more teachers to become familiar with that system, and students as well. I think that's an advantage for students who have transferred over into Tacoma Online, where that is the system that teachers and students are using for that program. Existing programs that we had focused on targeting students who require the most support. So with our elementary school kids, we chose the 4th and 5th grade students identified by title LAP, credit deficient high school students, ELL, and SPED. That concludes our summer learning presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, I'll open it up. Are there questions from members of the board? I'll start with Director Bonbright.
Yeah, thank you both for bringing all this great information to us. I had heard good things about 253 and that we were achieving better than expected. And also I appreciate John and James both when you send us snippets and things that are going on during the school year, and what kids are doing to excel in their specialty areas. So thank you for that. It's always very enlightening, and appreciate all the hard work that the team does. So thanks to everybody.
Director Keating, do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions right now. Thank you.
Director Leon?
Yeah, thanks for the report. Just maybe understanding that first graph that you showed us, like in 2019, just you had programs, there's 1295 and Jumpstart's 1403, and then for 2020, of course, COVID, those numbers are expected to go down. But under the transition in Jumpstart, it says virtual, doesn't give a number. Is that hard to track how many kids were doing?
Yeah, absolutely. It was very challenging to track who watched a YouTube video that a school posted on their webpage.
Okay.
So those were the pieces where it was very, very challenging. I could probably, I know some of our schools tried to hold a live event and share some information with families, and probably have limited ability to see how many people logged in, but I'm sure some of our schools have that. But as far as a comprehensive number that would be solid and a good piece of data, we really don't have that.
Okay, no, that explains why that says virtual instead of a number. The work done through the city, congratulations to the whole team for salvaging that program. 253 program, is that the title of it when you were talking about? I think it's Summer Jobs 253, and seeing how that can be potentially expanded in the virtual arena. I think it's going to continue to be difficult for kids to get job and mentoring experience anywhere in this new way in which we're conducting business. But I think it's really a credit to your department, and also to the city, for us to try to keep really on top of how important it is for kids to get skills with, of course, financial literacy, like you said, and the entrepreneurship, really advocating for themselves and getting some volunteer or paid experiences. I think that's something where we could continue to push, and probably need to push even harder. So I'd love to hear more about that at a future meeting. Thanks.
Dr. Garcia, do you have your hand up?
Thank you. I just wanted to echo these two gentlemen took on a very significant and difficult task in a very difficult time. We didn't have a lot of infrastructure, as you well know, and so I think it's really important to note that Summer Jobs 253 is the reason that it's so successful is Director Page. Hands down, he carries the torch. He never lets it go. He's never satisfied by it. And kids to the hundreds over the years, probably into the thousands, have benefited from his leadership. And James is definitely not relentlessly settling with. We are in the midst of just launching a virtual ELO pilot in our WALA sites. And so this work will continue throughout the year in those spirits. We won't stop with extracurricular activities. We won't stop with internships. We won't stop with jobs. We won't stop with extended learning opportunities. They just will look different. And the community and ourselves just need a moment to try to catch up. But we're not letting go of any of this work. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks for that. It kind of, Dr. Garcia's comment relates to a question I have. Well, I have one comment and then his comment relates to the question I have. My one comment is just looking at the completion rates. Well, I calculated the percentage completion of the Edgenuity credits that you, based on the numbers that you shared. And it looks like in last year, at least when you said that there were 721 students who started, but 376 who earned the credit, that's about 52%. And this year, even though the numbers were down, it was about 66% completion. So despite the fact that the enrollment was down, it's good to see that at least the completion was that at least it was before and actually better. So that's just a comment. But my question is, like in all of this, needing to rethink how we do things and to be innovative, have you identified any ways of work that you want to carry forward into a more traditional context or just into the planning for next summer if it has to look something like what this summer looked like? Or are there things that you've learned that work that you want to see continue forward?
Go, John. He's just going to have to unmute. You're going to unmute, John.
Thank you. Thank you. I wanted to thank Director Leon and Superintendent Santorno for their engagement of the kids and the families in the mentorship program with the virtual meetings and the orientation and celebration. It's so huge of a validation for our families and the presence in the community. Two of the big learning pieces, in addition to all this stuff, but with the virtual learning, the parents, with our coordinator cells, the parents were way more involved this year. They knew what their kids were doing. They learned about the program, the opportunities, and they can tell other families about it. That was a really big one. And the piece about using Microsoft Teams for virtual coaching. So the model of coaching, you know, I was a classroom teacher for 21 years where you're lockstepping through a lot of curriculums where you get behind kids and you're really learning the kids, their needs, their desires, their wants, you know, how they want to roll, and then arranging for people to encourage and support that. Okay, those were two big pieces. And my other thank you is also, I want to thank you, Director Bonbright, for your comment about the little press releases, the little news blast. Because what I do when you respond to those, you know, I forward those to those teachers and those administrators. And I just can't tell you how validating for a person that's worked with 140 kids a day and how tired it is at the end of the day, that little bit of encouragement, they are so appreciative of you and this entire board. So thank you.
For our department, I think, you know, we learned a lot of things. We learned about what works and what doesn't. But I think probably most importantly was that getting staff on board early, helping them learn the systems that they need to do. And then really, I think one of the biggest pieces that we'll pull away is the leadership of principals, right, in their buildings and how important that really is, the local control in their community and knowing which kids really need support and how they need support. That really played out in the completion of some of the Edgenuity work as well.
Great, thank you. Unless there's any other comments, I just want to thank you both for the work that you do, and we look forward to keep seeing our summer programs grow as they have. So appreciate you.
Thank you.
Item 5.2, COVID updates 2020-2021 school year. Superintendent Santorno?
So I'll ask Dr. Garcia to start. We have some slides. First slide.
Thank you, Superintendent. So we just, between the superintendent, I wanted to give you some of the updates that are happening and talk to you about some of the challenges that we continue to face. Next slide, please. So just an update. I know there was a lot of questions out there about what happened and why were we not able to launch with our preschool and kindergarten students. On the 30th of September, we did receive 22 pages of clarifying information from OSPI, LNI, and the health department on masks for our employees. That was a great relief, I think, not only for us in Tacoma, but across the state, because it was quite a controversial conversation. And it's very important to us that we make sure that our staff has the right proper PPEs to move forward. Beginning last, I can't even know this Monday, I forget what day it is. We began to bring back our elementary students in special ed self-contained on our campuses, and then secondary students actually started today. And those are self-contained special ed students. There was a lot of, I think, excitement by both staff and students, and it was great to see those relationships rekindled. But I think that we all know that unfortunately the numbers continue to rise in Pierce County. So the third bullet just explains that we did hit that 75% or 75 per 100,000 with a 6-day lag this week. And we were in some conversations with the Pierce County Health Department tonight. We will be remaining with our special ed self-contained, but they will be in small group settings in there. And this is in complete alignment with the decision tree for personalized learning in there. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, high category would mean that we would still serve students in the highest needs in small groups or cohorts. And that cohorts is really another way of saying small groups. It's the language right from the decision tree. And so that'll be a place that we're remain until further notice. This week, we were averaging over 3,900 students enrolled in Tacoma Online. We definitely recognize that this has been a unique situation with ups and downs for families and staff members and community members. And we've seen some successes and we've seen some continued challenges. And I think the superintendent will talk about some of those as we continue in this. On average, our daily attendance is over 90%, so we are tracking attendance based off of the state's definition of attendance. We recognize that the next phase of that is to make sure that our kids are successful in classes. So we're really going to be encouraging, starting this next week, our families will get their Schoology passwords. That'll be an opportunity for the families to be able to see what kids are turning in, what kind of messages are on the boards between students and staff members. They will still track attendance and grades the normal way, but if you're a family and like myself with my own kids, I really have to start to dig in there and start to look at their grades. Are they turning in their assignments? This is the critical time to do that, families. And then I think just what we've also seen with that average daily attendance is our classroom teachers and our principals are just doing a bang up job of going out and trying to connect via phone, via email, home visits with kids that are not able to connect with us. And so just a big shout out to our classroom teachers. Each of the cabinet members have had chances to observe classroom teachers either through lessons or and even some of our visits. We stay 6 feet away, obviously. The classroom teachers are doing an amazing job of providing really good lessons during that time. Enrollment across the district is down. We don't have our final numbers, but there are various factors in contributing that. Increased families going to homeschooling, other online programming, keeping their students home in kindergarten instead of sending them to public schools at this time. It's not unique to Tacoma. It's a trend that's happening all across the state, but it is important for us to know that enrollment across the district is down. We continue to face challenges, we being our families specifically, accessing internet, and there's multiple variables to that. We are very fortunate for our partners at the Foundation for Tacoma Students. They continue to try to help families navigate internet companies. There is resources available for families that need that internet. And then, real life challenges families are facing is trying to actually sign up and having the internet company on the other side help them through that process. These are all challenges that are real, and that's impacting students' ability to connect online. And it's a case-by-case situation, and so we are committed to continue to be problem solvers and face to try to remove those barriers. I believe that's the last slide, and I'm going to turn it back over to the superintendent.
So Dr. Garcia mentioned some things that still are problematic, and the board wanted me to make sure that I don't give the impression that everything's perfect and that we're going really well, because there are folks in the community that are having difficulty, and we want to acknowledge that we know about that. So, we do receive emails about people who are having specific difficulties or phone calls, and we really work to resolve those. And if you're not getting an answer, send a quick email, send an email to my address, and I try to get it to someone who can help you. But we know that there are families, like Dr. Garcia said, that are struggling because of no devices. Our kindergarten, first and second graders still do not have a device. They won't have one until December. I visited some classrooms this week, and teachers are making an effort to make phone calls to make sure they're giving packets out. Some are making home visits. And so if you haven't had a contact or you don't believe that your child is getting, please let us know so we can connect you with something. We know even our own board members are having trouble with their children with Edgenuity. Director Keating has a daughter at Wilson, and she's talked to me about some of the struggles that they're having. So they're not just, they're not unique, and we will continue to work on it. It's a new platform, that we're using in a pretty robust way. And you see that, Dr. Garcia, we have over 3,000 students on it. We're continually adjusting staffing. So we need to do better and to get that taken care of. We know there are parents that are really, really suffering because there's no, because we don't have enough daycare opportunities, and their ability to really support their students while they're trying to work is very hard. And so we know that is an issue, and it's really another one that's an issue across the state with daycare. We know we have special needs students that still haven't gotten their IEP completed or fixed. Let us know. Call your special ed department. If you don't get an answer, then shoot me an email. Let me know who you're trying to get a hold of, and I'll at least try to make some contact. They are working night and day to get those issues settled. The other thing we just ask is that that if your child hasn't already learned their algebra algorithms and they're in the second grade, it's okay. It's going to take a while, and that we need to we are still in that get into the routine and work on a system and work to get this in place. And we want you to know that we do hear the feedback and that we are adjusting. And if you feel like you're out there in a land and that nobody's paying attention to you, please call, send an email to my office, or you can send it to the board. And what we do is we get it to someone that can help you. So we really regret that everybody's needs aren't being met, and that this isn't a real easy system right now, but we're committed to getting there. And we just want you to know that. And that ends the superintendent's report.
Thank you both for the report. I'll go around and ask for comments or questions from members of the board. I'll start opposite direction. Director Leon, do you have questions or comments?
Yeah, thanks for those reports. Appreciate that. I think it's important that the public know what's going well, but also the shortcomings. We know it's not perfect, and that people in the district are working hard to try to rectify this. We are hearing from all of you out there when you're having problems. We're directing that to the superintendent, to director, her staff, to get you the services and the education your kids deserve. So I have some comments, but some questions. So one is, Do we have a backlog of people waiting to get on Tacoma Online currently, or is everybody on who wants to get on?
The short answer is we were able to take most of the folks off the wait list last week and get them into their schedules. Although that list is an ebb and flow. We literally have families, and it's important to note this for various reasons, that families are saying, this isn't working for me. It's not what I thought it was. It's much more independent than I thought it was. I want to go back to my brick and mortar supports. That's an example. And then we have others that are saying, this is not working for me over here. So the wait list is an ebb and flow list in there. And then as the health department continues to report, we see that influences families' decisions. It should be noted that, last week we communicated to everyone that we'll be in remote learning until further notice. As the numbers have reached that, we will still be in remote learning until further notice. And so the wait list changes in there. Staffing is important to stabilize. So right now we're stabilizing the staffing in Tacoma Online, which has implications on stabilizing the staffing in the brick and mortar. So if families are currently on the wait list, they will be on the wait list at this point until seats become available. But that won't happen this next week. We'll be stabilizing the enrollment and then processing them again.
Okay, thanks. You mentioned we have less enrollment in overall, and that's going to affect funding potentially, but I know that you have staff reaching out to try to recover or re-engage them and bring them back into Tacoma schools. So we can, you said there's a phenomenon there, kindergarten, pre-K families thinking, we're not going to enroll, we'll do it ourselves. And many people can teach their kids pretty well on their own. Many people do homeschooling, but we know that there's that's not for everybody, and there's a big advantage to being involved in the school. So maybe you could speak to the effort on re-engaging people, how that's going, recovering and bringing them back.
Yeah, and it really varies on the different levels. What's really important for us is that we make sure that our kids are in a safe place. And so I want to be real clear, is we're not asking staff to recruit anyone back, right? And so we're just asking them to confirm, does our student have a safe place to continue to learn during this worldwide pandemic? And so that may be, as the families communicated to us, that they are going to do homeschooling. Great. We support that. We respect that decision. Or we may have a situation where a family says, we're not going to start kindergarten yet. And as we mentioned before, we say, great. We completely understand and respect that. What we want to make sure is a family that is not connected and wants to be connected, that we try to remove those barriers. And so that's how we're going about that process. And it comes from the school staff. Our, I mentioned teachers and principals, but our frontline office staff, our office professionals, they do an amazing job. They know those kids, they're their babies, they know those families. So they do a lot of that. Where are you? Are you on track? And then in collaboration with the principal and the classroom teacher that says, are you okay? And so there's really not one answer to that recruitment. And I don't even want to say, I apologize. It's not necessarily a recruitment, but is it a connection? Are you in a safe place during this worldwide pandemic to continue your education? And whenever you're ready, if you want to come back, we're here for you.
Okay. You just gave us some information about the pre-K and kindergarten kids probably not going to be able to get their computers to December. That's disappointing. That's disappointing to the community, but we know that the supply chain on computers has been slowed down by the pandemic. So a lot of those components are made in Asia. I think it's worth or kind of mentioning to the families that are listening out there, and hopefully spreading the word that those funds are available for the high-speed internet also. That some families, I know that some families may be worried about how the application process works, because there's a lot of questions about numbers of people in the home, who's involved, what maybe how much the family makes, and it may seem intrusive to some folks. We do not believe there's any, and some people are worried about maybe ICE being involved, or someone being the authorities being involved to remove somebody from the country if they get information about someone. These are all rumors and that exist out there. So we want to help folks understand that there's no connection to any law enforcement agency that's going to find you if you sign up for HighSpeed Internet. So please sign up. So I don't know if you have anything else you want to add to that.
I think you did a great job of articulating some of the challenges families face and demystifying Director Leon. Those are real challenges, and that in turn the school folks face to try to help build that trust as well. So we respect that. There's a lot of reasons, and I guess if you take anything away from this and you say, well, kids are struggling. Yep, some kids are definitely struggling. Some kids are accelerating, but it doesn't matter, and it's not a comparison. There's individuals, and we got to keep on trying to fight to meet those individual needs. And if there's one thing that we've learned is there's not one thing that will fix everything. It's a very complex and nuanced environment in all different levels. And then, we recognize that our teaching staff, our principals, our families, our parents, they're all going through additional challenges on top of, did my 15-year-old turn in their math assignment today? It's heavy. Maybe that's just too much personal information from me having 3 teenagers right now.
Yeah, I'll appreciate. I'll finish with we really want to get those younger kids into school, right? The general education group, but with these numbers going up in the community, it's going to be really hard to do that anytime soon. But let's see what happens with the community doing their due diligence on physical and social distancing, masks, and on all the things we know about public health that have to happen to reduce the spread. So we're hopeful, but at this point, as you said, it's not going to happen right now. So thanks.
One of the things the superintendent charged us with today is that we've done, the staff has done an amazing job of preparing to come back. However, we got to go back and revisit those plans because we have learned some things in the last 6 weeks. And so as families start to think about what does that look like, we'll be bringing some updates to saying, so what does that look like and what does that mean? And and that's just us telling folks that we're hearing from you. We're hearing from our staff. We do have some decision tree, but the way that we meet those decision tree requirements, the agreements that we already have with our TA partners, we can still do that, but we have to listen to what we've already experienced, and we may be modifying what some of those plans in order to bring students to come back safely.
Okay, Director Bonbright.
Okay, well, and on, thank you for the presentation. It was very informative, and I wanted to add something to what Deputy Superintendent Garcia just said about learning from what we've learned. But I think we're all in this together, and what we're also learning from other school districts that have been able to go back because they're in level 3 in their county, or their rates are down, and they've been able to bring kids back already, and learning from those. From our colleagues across the state about what's working and what's not based on what they thought would be good or not. And for example, we heard today on Director Keating and I heard today on a call of statewide school board directors that much to the surprise of several districts, the kindergartners and first graders are doing a great job of operating all day in with their masks, and they're not pulling at them or taking them off, and it's been very successful in those communities. And so that's kind of one of those things that you don't know, you're not sure, and it helps to see what other folks who've gone before us have where they've succeeded, so that we have a little bit of extra time to be planful. And so we're just so you know, and the public knows that as school board directors, we are talking to our colleagues across the state and sharing that information, just well as Superintendent Santorno is talking with her colleagues here in Pierce County and across the state, and we're trying to gather so we all don't try and reinvent the wheel each time. So that's a bit of good news and sharing. I guess the other thing I would say that Dr. Leon usually says, so I'll say it for him this time, was to make sure everybody gets their flu shot. I mean, I think that's the other thing that's important right now. You think your kids aren't going out and you're not getting out of the house much, maybe, but it is one of those things. It's going to be a defining factor because we're entering flu season. So keep washing hands and wearing masks and get your flu shot. So that's a little PSA. But I think other than that, I really appreciative that we have gotten the self-contained special ed kids into classrooms with their teachers, paras, and that they're back engaged. That was a high priority for the district, high priority for the board, and really excited. And thank you very much to the team and to all the teachers who are out there every day in those classrooms, making learning environments available for our kids that are farthest from educational equity. And I also wanted to say that I think that we're with the food deliveries and the getting information out and it's coming up to be cold, getting clothing out, things that we always did at school site before. It's just more challenging when you're trying to figure out ways to get all those services out to families. And so I know that the team is working hard on that. So thank you for that as well. And I just want to shout out to all the principals and assistant principals at every school. This is Support Your Principal Month. And I just want to say that I know you are all doing incredibly difficult work, and your days are long, and it is exhausting work, and it seems like it's impossible to make everyone happy, but you are leaders in all of your roles, and thank you for modeling the commitment that we all need to get this done. So thank you.
Director Keating?
Yeah, thank you for the report. And also I want to thank both of you for acknowledging the struggles, because I know that there can be a perception that those of us on the board and in the executive leadership are disconnected to actually the issues that are happening and the problems. And 3 out of 4 of us on the board right now, we have kids experiencing this, and so we're living it. And my family is no different than many of the other families in the district, and we're all trying to navigate things that are hard and they're really heavy. And I think as the board members, like, we are really working hard to be engaged and stay informed and stay connected to the experiences that families are having in, and whatever they may be, so that we can help direct our own decision making. And I'll just share that, I had a really hard conversation with a parent last week who just started yelling. And I think mostly because this parent didn't feel heard. And after a period of time, we were able to have a calmer conversation. And really it comes down to not being able to support their kids and not feeling like they have the bandwidth or the wherewithal and the support that they need. And I just know, I'm feeling that too as a parent. I don't know what the best decision is. I'm trying to make a good decision in the moment for right now, because I don't know what the future is going to be. And so I think, like, there's just a lot of heaviness and a lot of isolation. And I know that on a personal level, it's taking a toll, this long continuum of isolation. And so I just want to acknowledge that, I know behind the scenes teachers are working and counselors are working tirelessly, and our principals. And I know that people are working themselves to try and meet the needs, and the needs are just really huge and new. So I just want to say thank you for just the acknowledgement that things are just hard, and they'll continue to be hard, and they'll also continue to have improvements in different areas. So thank you.
Thank you. I just have a couple of comments. One is just a point of clarification. In the materials, we talk about students who have returned to school. There's reference to self-contained students, but I just want to clarify, is that self-contained classrooms? And can we say a little bit more about what it means for a student to be in a self-contained classroom context, just so that the public has a sense of why that's significant, or why that group of students first?
Thank you, and I apologize for that. That's a great insight and catch there. These are students that are in self-contained classrooms. They are not self-contained students, and so I apologize. The context is that they traditionally, per their IEP, spend nearly or 100% of their time in the same classroom in order to have their individual education plans addressed, and so they are what is defined as those that are furthest from educational justice. They will have the most difficulty accessing the education that they need in a remote setting. And so the state by the state decision tree has identified that those are the students that school districts should be working to bring on campuses first. They need the most additional supports in that context. And the term self-contained classroom is meaning that they are really in their classrooms getting all the services. Yes, there is some pull out, but they're not traveling to other classrooms to attend different classes.
Thank you for that clarification. I think it's good context for the community. Also, I am wondering about the outreach to families who we know still aren't accessing internet. We had some conversation about it in response to Director Leon's comments. So what's our strategy at this point? Is the foundation just continuing with its the outreach that it's been doing, or do we have like another kind of level of intense kind of outreach that we plan to launch? But what's the game plan?
Second plan.
Yeah.
So I talked to Elvin from the Foundation for Tacoma Students, and the good thing is they have a list of parents who at one time or another did ask about internet, but that they haven't followed through and finished the paperwork, or so that's the list they're working through. Really, if they could get all those parents who at least indicated an interest, that would be great. I don't know. I know that principals at schools are trying to say, hey, if you have an internet problem, or teachers are reporting, hey, this family in my class has an internet problem, then we're referring those. So you've got those two mechanisms, one for students that just haven't, parents haven't connected yet, and others who have made some kind of a connection but haven't followed through.
I also just would like to add a little bit of additional information. Is our classroom teachers are they don't stop. They deliver packets. They're making phone calls. They're just doing a phenomenal job of trying to close those gaps. And they're the curriculum instruction team. And none of this is designed to say, oh, don't worry, these are the answers. I'm just trying to give you a little bit of context of some additional supports that are out there. The curriculum instruction team continues to do lessons that are taped and are available on our video channels. I know that's not perfect for everyone. And so everyone's just trying to continue to develop several different options. And in the meantime, till some of these larger internet access can be are broken down. And so the best news is teachers have office hours. Call your school, call your principal, call your classroom teacher. We haven't heard one story, and I'm not trying to jinx us, where a classroom teacher says, I can't work with you. They're just doing a phenomenal job of trying to support kids even when there is no internet. So I know that's not in context to your specific question, President Cobb, but I think it's important to note that the staff is continuing to try to find options in the meantime as well.
Okay. Yeah. My last question is more structural and looking forward. Given that we are still able to provide meals to all students and that we're still kind of in a remote context, I could imagine that things like signing up for free and reduced price meals are not top of mind. But I also I know that in the current world, that enrollment and that percentage has relationship to our LAP funding in particular, and that percentage of eligible students is connected to some funding drivers. So are there ways that what's the current status of that, I guess, first? And then are there ways that we can leverage like the virtual stuff. Like, can we do like DocuSign for some of those forms that we typically get in paper? Are there ways that we can leverage? How are you think? I'll just stop there and say, how are you thinking about addressing that challenge, given it's the relationship between that enrollment percentage and our future LAP and other kinds of funding?
So it's been one of our biggest concerns, as we know that sometimes bureaucracy is difficult to change the rule making in there. And it's not uncommon to us across the nation, or us in Tacoma. So the team, the nutrition services team, the public information officers team, General Counsel Trueblood have all wrestled around what are the different options in there. Right now, there is information on the school district's website, the nutrition services website. We try to open up buildings so the parents could drop off those applications. But we really encourage folks, we don't know how long the meal service is going to go. We've heard that it will go beyond December, but we have no official acknowledgement of that yet. And so we really encourage families to go ahead and fill that out as they go.
Okay, well, anything we can do to get the message out or through partners, whatever, I think this is important and a conversation we should keep having. Director Keating?
Yeah, in context to like reopening and I wanted to just share that Director Bombright and I heard today that per the governor, the Open Public Meetings Act, OPMA, has been extended again to December 1st, December something. Thank you. And so it clearly lays out, because I know that this has been a question that we've gotten as a board about, you know, if students are in buildings, why aren't you having in-person meetings? And per the guidance from the governor, boards can only meet in person if they are in phase 3. And so until we are at that point, that's not something that, you know, we can consider per the OPMA and the governor's proclamation. So I just wanted to share that for the public.
Thank you. Any further comments about the superintendent's report items? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to item number 6, and that's your comment, Director Keating, about meetings is a nice segue. I've mentioned this in prior meetings that the board has talked about ways to really ensure that we're getting public input and hearing your voice during this time of meeting virtually. And I think before our next regular business meeting, we should have some protocol for people to be able to deliver comment live. So we're not prepared to introduce exactly what the protocol is tonight, but for those of you who follow along with these meetings regularly and are interested or have submitted comment in the past, please check out the next notice for our next public meeting, because we will include updated guidance as we have it there. But for tonight, members of the public wishing to address the board, 1, prepare a written statement that will be attached to the board agenda and meeting minutes. 2, because this will be a public document, it's recommended that you prepare the statement in a separate document using an application such as Microsoft Word. At the top of the document, please identify yourself and subject matter for your statement. Please do not include your phone number, address, or email address unless you want that personal information to be included in the public record. Number 3, submit your written statement via email to the school board secretary 24 hours prior to the start of the meeting. Statements submitted after the deadline will not be considered at this session. Number 4, statements should be emailed to tjones4@tacoma.k12.law.us. Number 5, typically the board allows up to 3 minutes for you to share verbal comments. A 3-minute verbal statement converts to approximately 300 to 500 words or up to 2 pages double-spaced. Please limit your written statement to this guidance. During the meeting, the superintendent will read into the record your name and the subject matter of your statement. The superintendent will not read the statement during the meeting. However, your statement will be linked to the agenda so that members of the public will be able to read your statement. Your statement will also be linked to the meeting minutes for future reference. Members of the board will also review your written statement. The superintendent or her designee will follow up with you if action is needed. And I just want to reiterate to the public that we do get these comments in advance, and that's why we ask for the 24-hour notice so that we can consider the comments as part of this meeting. Superintendent Santorno, will you please read the names of those who have submitted public comment?
Yes, we have two public comments that were submitted. I want to note that they're both about more support needed from TPS for students in the child care program. And that's why I asked Julie Ray to come to our meeting, because I know that she's been working with one of the daycares. It's a long list. And so, it will take us a while before we can meet, some of the expectations of the daycare. But I just want to make sure that Julie had a chance to talk about what she has done. The two comments that were submitted were by Russell Horton regarding more support needed from TPS for students in childcare program. And number two was Gemma Stefani regarding TPS must support school-age childcare in Tacoma. Julie?
Good evening, Superintendent Santarno and members of the board. I did have a great conversation with one of our daycare providers this week and listened to concerns, areas of need, and how we can address and partner with daycare staff in support of our students. Communication was one of the big areas that we discussed. I did follow up with the school principal about adding the daycare to the weekly robocalls, as well as our communication department adding the communication every week. So gave that daycare address. Also talked to the principal about setting up monthly meetings with the daycare staff, her instructional coach, to discuss curriculum, questions that come up, and problem solve what's working and what's not. So that was addressed. Another big piece was around training for the daycare staff related to technology. So I did follow up with the daycare director and sent her our Family Support Center link, which is on our website. This includes bite-sized videos that help families learn about the applications that students are learning, such as Microsoft Teams and Schoology. So I'll continue to update when there's new videos that pop up so that our daycare staff can engage in the same training that our families are in, because they're supporting our kids all day with learning, and we greatly appreciate their support. The provider I talked to has 25 of our students, and they're doing a great job just supporting the technology needs, the curriculum. So we want to make sure we're responsive. In addition, we discussed technology support when issues come up. Our teacher librarians are available in all of our schools when questions about that technology come up, also troubleshooting issues with families. So I connected the principal with the school librarian that's going to offer the same support to the daycare, because this one in particular has 25 of our kids. So we want to make sure they have a contact when questions come up. And then finally, we discussed the lunches. And as you know, we have many bus routes that are delivering meals to our schools. And we are stopping 2 blocks from this daycare, so that would be an option for that food pickup. And then finally, the last concern that was brought up was really consistency around our Schoology and Teams, those links that teachers are sending out, so that it's easy for staff to help kids get onto the link. So we do have ongoing training for our teachers and principals in Schoology as we continue to navigate and improve in that area. So again, we just appreciate our daycare providers and want to make sure that we're addressing those needs, and we'll continue to problem solve and listen and learn.
Thank you so much, Julie. We appreciate that. And Julie may not be your contact if you're a daycare and need help, but let us know and we will get someone on some of those issues. And looks like Julie has already come up with some good solutions we can use across the board. So thank you so much, Julie.
Thank you.
Those are the only comments.
Director Leon, did you have a comment?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much, Julie and Superintendent, for bringing this presentation. I mean, I think it shows our attentiveness to the comments. We're obviously reading them and trying to learn and improve as we go. So thanks for a lot of those topics you mentioned you were already doing, and some maybe expanded to other other ones, other these daycares, and people, the term daycare may be deceiving to some of the public. So when people understand these are
Childcare.
kids, most for so from all ages of elementary school and even some middle school kids are in these care centers and getting help learning. So it's not just tiny like pre-K kids we're talking about. These are all age kids. So thank you for helping them and discussing this.
Yeah, I echo those comments. I was speaking with someone just this week whose husband works for the Boys and Girls Club, and they're trying to manage. It's just having kids in multiple schools, and so their Schoology schedules are slightly different. Some are doing Tacoma online, so they're just trying to manage. So I appreciate the comments too, and the attention to these providers have school-age childcare, early pre-K and under childcare. So I appreciate the update.
Thank
Okay.
you. Those are the only 2 comments.
Okay, thank you. So moving on to item number 7, the consent agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
I so move.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments?
I do have some edits to the minutes from the last meeting. They're pretty technical, but just to make it accurate. In committee reports, I just wanted to clarify, and I can get to, some of them are, kind of just grammatical because I'm changing things around, but after Project Child Success Pierce County, there's a colon, and I would say weekly, and then cross out the and then make webinars plural, and I can go through these with Tracy, but, and then the last part of the sentence is a duplicative, so just put a period after conference and a weekly local public officials calls for COVID-19 response and support would just be deleted because it's already in earlier. So I can send these to Tracy.
Please do.
Ms. Trueblood, just for from your perspective, these sound like non-substantive changes. Are we good to approve the minutes as what should we do? Are we approving these minutes with some non-substantive changes to come, or should we approve the consent agenda without item 7.1 pending these changes?
That's a question. I think these are all perfunctory. It's all just style. It's not substance. So I'd recommend that you approve the minutes. And also, just as if there are just grammatical changes, you could just give those directly to Tracy. I don't think you need to do that in open session.
Yeah, and we talked about that today, but we weren't sure. So we thought we'd bring it and let you tell us what we should do. So
the power.
Yes, thank you.
Any other comments, members of the board? Hearing none, all those in favor of adopting the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is adopted. Item number 8, policy matters. There are none tonight. Item 9, financial report. Presentation of the financial health of the district will be made during regular board meetings on a quarterly basis. Monthly financial statements can be found on the district website at www.tacomaschools.org/departments/budget/financial reporting. Number 10, curriculum and instruction. There are no curriculum and instruction matters tonight. Number 11, business matters. 11.1, approval of acceptance of early childhood education and assistance program, or ECAP, fiscal year 2021 continuation grant from the Office of the Superintendent of Public Instruction.
The Deputy Superintendent, on behalf of the Assistant Superintendent of Teaching and Learning, recommends the Board of Directors approve the Early Childhood Education and Assistance Program Continuation Grant from July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021 in the amount of $1,439,77.44. Funding source early learning.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt item 11?
I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments about item 11.1? Seeing none, all those in favor of adopting 11.1, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion is adopted. Item 11.2, approval of acceptance of Title II Part A grant from the Office of the Superintendent of Public Instruction.
The Deputy Superintendent, on behalf of the Assistant Superintendent of Teaching and Learning, recommends that the Board of Directors approve the acceptance of the Title II Part A grant from the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction in the amount of $58,751, and expenditure of funds in accordance to the accepted guidelines. Funding source, Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt item 11.2?
I move to adopt.
I second.
Been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, all those in favor of adopting 11.2, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, item 11.2 is adopted. 11.3, approval of acceptance of Title IV, Part A, grant from the Office of the Superintendent of Public Instruction.
The Deputy Superintendent, on behalf of the Assistant Superintendent of Teaching and Learning, recommends that the Board of Directors approve the acceptance of the Title IV Part A grant from the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction in the amount of $742,719 and the expenditure of funds in accordance with the accepted guidelines. Funding source, Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt item 11.3?
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments from the board? I just have one quick question about this. I always ask this every year, I feel like. I know that Title IV Part A can be transferred to other programs. What's our program plan? Are we using this to implement a program under the Title IV Part A guidance, or are we transferring these funds to another title program?
We use it in a manner of accordance to the guidance, but I would tell you that anytime when it's flexible and opportunities, over the course of the year, plans may change. And so for those that are home, how do you make those decisions and where are those? Tacoma is very fortunate that we are audited by OSPI every year because we are one of the 4 largest school districts. So anytime we make any of those changes, we are in complete compliance with the regulations to meet the original intent of the grants.
Yeah, and I don't doubt at all that we're in compliance, but I know that Title IV Part A is the Student Support and Academic Enrichment Grant, and there are certain program areas that are called out there. But you can transfer the funds instead to Title I or Title II, maybe even. So I just wondered what our program plan for this is, or what it will cover. Is it mostly staff? If it's mostly staff, then that's fine too. But just out of curiosity.
We could bring you a copy of the plan and that's been submitted in the Friday report if that's helpful. I would be hesitant to speak to the specific details right this moment.
Thanks. Thank you for that. So all those in favor of adopting item 11.3, say aye.
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 Any opposed? And motion is adopted. Item 11.4, approval of the Silence Antivirus Annual Renewal. I didn't pronounce that right. Can someone please correct me?
I apologize. I just lost my agenda. So I'm bringing it back up.
That's right. Silence is right.
Silence.
You're right.
Thank you.
One minor second. Here we go. The Deputy Superintendent. Oh, we just got to try this again.
Take your time.
I'll take it.
You're going to have to, Superintendent. I can't. Oh,
Okay.
there we go. Ready? The Deputy Superintendent, on behalf of the Chief Information Officer, recommends that the Board of Directors approve the renewal of this Silence Agreement for the 2020-2021 school year. Funding source, Technology General Fund. And I apologize for the delay.
No problem. Is there a motion to adopt item 11.4?
I motion to adopt.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments from the board?
Can the Deputy Superintendent, would you mind explaining what this is?
Short, simple answer is it's antivirus software. So those that are coming in from the outside, we have a number of systems. Our Chief Information Officer, Ed Gracia, does an amazing job with his team of Danny Korn and others to try to have multiple layers of safety and security. So it's an antivirus software.
And Ernest Goody is here. I don't know, Ernest, do you have anything else to add?
Could you add, because I was just recalling that we approved approved the purchase of another antivirus software in our last board meeting. So I'm just wondering how these two complement one another. Not that we don't need it. I'm sure we need it.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not sure what was approved the last time, so I don't know, but it's certainly not the same thing. Cylance is the software that goes on workstations, all the district workstations, students, staff, all of them, and servers, and it basically protects them from being compromised, with everything you can think of, phishing attacks, all that stuff. It's also called anti-malware. It's basically protecting the data.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any further questions? Hearing none.
Well,
I'll-
I was just gonna say, when I read this, I saw virus, and virus has such a different meaning to me in this time that I was like, wait a minute, what is this? So but I would know it as malware. So it was, thank you for the clarification on all of that.
And that's why it's top of mind, the previous item that we adopted, because the same thought came up as soon as you see the word virus now. It's a whole different meaning. So thank you for that. All those in favor of adopting item 11.4 say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion is adopted. Item 12, other business. There are no other business items tonight. 13, reports to the board. There are none tonight. Sorry. Item 14, board comments and reports. I'll just go around and see if there are comments or reports from the members of the board tonight. I'll start with Vice President Bonbright.
Yes, I think since the last board meeting, there have been the regular weekly WASDA webinars, which is the Washington's School Directors Association, and Director Keating and I participate on those every week and find them very informative, and so that's been very helpful. Also, each week I've been participating in a call with local elected officials from different agencies across the county, and we talk about COVID response and what our agencies are doing and how we can work together. Also, this week I had a monthly meeting with the Project Child Success, which is a program of First Five Fundamentals, the nonprofit in the community. And it's where we learn all about the different components that are happening, and we bring in community partners and talk about things, the various components that they're doing. And I think one of the exciting ones that we learned about this week was a report on Move to Learn, which is a new training, engagement, learning opportunity for children, and the librarians in Pierce County are using that as a way to, work with young children, but it can be any age. But there's also a Cook to Learn and a Paint to Learn, but the new one is Move to Learn. And we learned a lot about it. There's 18 community partners that have been facilitators who've been trained on it. And so again, it's wonderful that other community partners are working with young kids that are also in our schools, but then at other times when they're with their parents or they're at the library, they're getting these other, and some of them are social emotional learning opportunities, which is great. So kudos to our wonderful partners who are working in early learning here in Tacoma and Pierce County.
Thank you. Director Keating, any comments or updates tonight?
I think something I would add on to what Director Bonbright or Vice President Bonbright said around the WASDA calls is it is really helpful and informative to hear directly from school directors from across the state, and particularly in our county. There's a lot that participate on these calls locally, and so we get to hear from what's happening in Gig Harbor and Eatonville and Bellevue and other districts of variety of sizes, and so there are so many similarities in the things that each district are experiencing. So I think that that's helpful because it does at times feel like it's only here in Tacoma or only TPS, but there are really widespread impacts, and so that's really helpful. The other thing that I think I would mention is, so as the legislative rep, the Legislative Assembly happened, I think it was Friday the 25th of September, and that was a very long day of participating in a parliamentary voting process to prioritize the WASDA's standing positions on a statewide level. So this represents all school districts or school boards in the state. And so I think, so we had that process, and then from there, within a week after that, then each board had an opportunity to prioritize on a state level how each board's individual priorities align with, and what the purpose of all it sounds like jarble and jargon to me as I'm saying it, but the purpose is to help the organization that supports school directors across the state be able to advocate on behalf of all sizes of school districts and school boards, not just the needs are so different between smaller school districts, suburban and rural, and large districts like ours. So it was a very fascinating process to go through. And as we start to approach the upcoming legislative session, that will be very interesting and very different, given that, you know, it may likely be in a remote setting. So how that business is going to get conducted and my engagement with the legislature is going to be really interesting on behalf of the board. So it was quite a process, quite a learning curve, and a lot of time put in. So in learning about educational law. So I really learned quite a bit from just that experience, and know that as I continue to represent us as a body, that, you know, I'm going to continue to keep my nose to the grindstone and learn as best as I can and represent us in the most equitable way.
Thank you. Director Leon?
Thanks. Yeah, just I want to emphasize to folks from a medical standpoint. Last week we were at 93% capacity of our hospital beds in the city, which is not where we'd like to be when there's a potential for going up to 100%. So we'd like to be in the mid 80s or lower 80s in general. So it's not full of COVID patients. It's full of people with lots of other illnesses, but there's not much room there for if people are not following the social and physical distancing recommendations. And unfortunately, it shouldn't be political, but it has become somewhat political to wear a mask. And I am here to say, wear your mask. It doesn't matter what party or things you believe in. What's important is to stay safe. So please keep your distance from other folks when possible. You've got your circle of people that you can be around, but don't go beyond that. And re-emphasize the importance of signing up for the HighSpeed Internet for those folks out there that worry about giving up too much of the information. Some of those folks are worried about that, or immigration coming to cause problems to their family. So please sign up for that, because we need to get more of our students on the HighSpeed Internet. I'm going to repeat that last part in Spanish for our Spanish-speaking public. So si no tienes el Internet que puede funcionar más rápido, es muy importante que comunicas con nosotros. Tenemos recursos y dinero para que ustedes puedan conectarse, y no hay chance que esta información va a salir y va a la inmigración o la policía para que te saquen o te den un problema. Es puro para educación y necesitamos que ustedes ingresan y lo usan. Es gratis. Thank you. That's it right now.
Thank you all. I just want to reflect back to you my appreciation for how strong of a team I feel like we are right now. I think we play very different roles, And Director Leon, as evidenced by your ability to speak directly to a part of our community that the others of us can't. So I appreciate you saying that back in Spanish just to create that bridge of communication. We know that it's not every language represented in this moment, but I just want to appreciate you for that. And Director Bonbright and Director Keating, I appreciate the day that you spent with WASDA. I know Director Keating tapped me in just one time to ask for some input on a couple votes, and I was seeing other friends who are school directors across the state posting on Facebook about the day and how long it was. So I just want to thank you for not only showing up the way you did on that day to participate and vote for us in the WASDA context, but also how the two of you continue to stay connected with our colleagues across the state in the weekly WASDA calls. So I just appreciate you all, and I know that we have families, we have full-time jobs outside of this, and so we all can't be everywhere. So I just, again, thank you for the time that you dedicate to not only being here and present for our regular meetings, but your engagements beyond that. I don't have any reports to share. I know that foundation meetings are coming up. Some of the other engagements I have been very different given the virtual context that we're in. And I see Dr. Garcia's hand, and I'll go there next. I don't have any more updates. Again, just want to appreciate those. Appreciate you.
Just real quickly, and I apologize, my notes are not working. I believe Jasmine's with us tonight, so she might have a student report for us from there. And there's a wonderful article in the News Tribune about Miss Rhonda Stinson and her work about bringing an alumni back at Mount Tahoma to serve Mount Tahoma kids. And so if you get a chance, take the time to read that article about coming home and building that Thunderbird pride. So thank you.
Thank you. Jasmine, are you with us still?
Yeah, hi. I don't have much to report. Normally I talk about events happening at my school or other schools, but being virtual, there haven't been a lot of events. But my school is trying to work on more community engagement and figuring out how we can, translate our live events to a remote setting. And so I believe the 21st of this month, we're having a virtual student showcase where students can submit art or recordings of performances or like comedy sketches or whatever. And then we're going to get together as a school virtually during our mentor group time and like view the video together. And then we're thinking of having a fall carnival virtually, but we're still trying to figure out how that can work. And almost all of our clubs are up and running and hosting their own meetings and working on plans for this year.
So, thank you, Jasmine. And I know that the process of identifying other student representatives or another student representative and alternates is underway. And so in the year that you got connected to us, I know that we were able to in person have some time with you all, and we won't be able to do that in the same way this year. But as that happens, I just want to flag for the rest of us and say out loud that we do need to figure out a way to connect with you all and to bring you on board and to really figure out how we can tap your voice a little bit more strategically in these meetings and just as a source of input about how things are going out in the schools. So thank you again for being here. Director Bonbright?
Yeah, Jasmine, thanks for coming on. I'm sorry that we waited till the end. We just didn't see your face, so I couldn't just slipped mine. But thanks for joining. And can you remind us? I don't know if you said it and I just didn't hear it, but which school you're at currently?
Yeah, no, I go to SAMI, so the Science and Math Institute, and I'm a senior this year as well.
So I'm just wondering if you don't mind sharing maybe your own experience with this whole remote learning experience, or some of your friends, if you just can give us some of what you've heard.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know that personally, the start was rough. Just trying to figure out what was happening and honestly the expectations that teachers had for us, especially like grade wise, since we are going back to traditional grading in a very untraditional school setting. it was pretty hard for students to, I think, wrap their heads around what that's going to look like. But teachers have been working really hard to communicate with us and be very understanding about things. I don't hate the situation. I mean, I can make myself tea anytime during the day. But it's definitely been a struggle trying to work on, like my AP bio class with very intense material and not having super structured office hours, or not just being able to like drop by and have one-on-one time with teachers, which I'm used to doing. So that's definitely been different, and I think everyone's just trying to climb this very steep learning curve. And I know, as a senior, having to switch to a virtual learning setting while also trying to apply to colleges and scholarships without having like teachers live who can sit down with you and help you through it has been very difficult. And I think most students feel the same. Yeah.
Thanks so much for sharing. We appreciate it. And feel free to pop up next board meeting and give your input when you have it.
Maybe we can add you to the roll call, just the recognition that you're here. I think bookending this at least.
I love that idea.
Like, so Ms. Trueblood, please make a note, let's add it to that comment. Thank you.
I'll do that.
Okay, any other comments from the board? So I'll move on to item number 16, and then I'll go back to 15 because I think that's the way it should be. Announcement of future board meetings. Thursday, October 15th, we'll meet at 6 p.m. for a study session, and the topics will be our legislative agenda and priority benchmarks. On Thursday, October 22nd at 6 p.m., we'll meet for a regular business meeting. And I just want to note for the public, the board has been engaged in a process to identify a new member to appoint to serve on the board with us following former Director Hines' resignation. So at this October 22nd board meeting, we will be making a decision about that appointment. And then on Thursday, November 12th, we'll meet at 6 p.m. for our regular business meeting. So with that, I think we have covered items that we planned for this business meeting, and unless there are any other comments from the board, I will move back to item 15 and call this meeting adjourned. Thank you all.